What if America's closest allies hold more economic leverage than most people realize? Behind the scenes, Canada and several European powers are quietly examining vulnerabilities that could affect U.S. agriculture, manufacturing, technology, and financial markets. One critical resource alone supplies more than 90% of what American farmers need to keep crops productive, while Canadian investors have hundreds of billions of dollars tied to the U.S. economy. Your roadmap to the latest in auto, welcome to Highway Herald. Today, we're uncovering the strategic dependencies, financial connections, and supply chain realities that are reshaping the balance of economic influence between Washington and some of its closest partners. The 90% supply card, America's farm risk. One of America's most overlooked vulnerabilities lies beneath Saskatchewan's farmland. Potash may not generate headlines like oil or semiconductors, but it is essential for fertilizer production and modern agriculture. The United States imports more than 90% of its potash needs, with Canada supplying roughly 80% of that demand. In short, American farmers rely heavily on Canadian resources to keep crop yields stable. That dependence is attracting growing attention as Canada and Europe examine strategic supply chains. Germany's fertilizer giant K+S operates the massive Bethune mine, while BHP's enormous Jansen project could further strengthen Canadian production later this decade. The challenge for Washington is the lack of practical alternatives. Domestic output remains limited, and suppliers such as Russia and Belarus present geopolitical complications. Analysts warn that disruptions or tariffs would primarily increase fertilizer costs, raising farming expenses and potentially food prices, highlighting Canada's powerful position in this critical agricultural supply chain. But fertilizer is only one piece of the puzzle. Beyond farms and food production, Canada also holds influence through something that quietly powers large portions of the American economy: investment capital. The $733 billion question: could capital shift? While potash highlights an agricultural dependency, another figure is attracting attention across financial markets: $733 billion. That is the estimated amount Canadian firms and pension funds have invested in the United States, making Canada one of America's largest foreign investors. Major institutions such as CPP Investments, PSP Investments, OMERS, CDPQ, and Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan maintain significant holdings in U.S. infrastructure, technology, real estate, and private equity. However, Ottawa is increasingly encouraging investment at home. New priorities include LNG export terminals, critical mineral projects, battery manufacturing, AI infrastructure, Arctic transportation corridors, and defense-related industries. These initiatives aim to attract more institutional capital into Canadian projects. Analysts suggest that even a modest reallocation of pension assets could redirect tens of billions of dollars over time. While not causing an immediate shock, reduced investment flows could gradually affect sectors that have long benefited from stable Canadian capital, reflecting Canada's growing focus on economic self-reliance. But fertilizer and investment capital may not be America's most important dependencies. What European policymakers reportedly found inside pharmaceutical and semiconductor supply chains could have even greater implications for U.S. industry and technology leadership. Before we reveal that, take a quick second to subscribe to Highway Herald if you enjoy deep dive analysis of the forces shaping global industries, trade, and technology. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories like this. Now let's examine the next pressure point: Europe's supply chain map, America's dependencies. As tensions with Washington persist, Germany and the European Union have reportedly been examining areas where the United States depends heavily on European industries. Healthcare is a major example. European firms supply key ingredients used in many branded medicines and play an important role in insulin supply chains relied upon by millions of Americans. Another critical dependency lies in semiconductors. While the U.S. leads in chip design and AI software, advanced chip manufacturing still relies on European technology. Dutch company ASML, along with German firms Zeiss and Trumpf, produces the specialized lithography equipment needed to manufacture cutting-edge processors. Europe also benefits from significant market leverage. With roughly 450 million consumers and powerful regulations such as the Digital Markets Act, Brussels can influence major technology companies operating within its borders. These realities highlight how deeply interconnected and strategically important the transatlantic economic relationship has become. Yet supply chains are only part of the equation. The most powerful leverage point may not involve fertilizer, medicine, or semiconductors at all. It may come from the trillions of dollars moving through global financial markets. The $10 trillion lever, Wall Street exposure. The final piece of this story may be the most significant: financial influence. European investors collectively hold more than $10 trillion in U.S. assets, including stocks, bonds, and government securities. This deep financial connection strengthens both economies, but it also creates potential leverage. For decades, global investors viewed the United States as the safest destination for capital. European pension funds, banks, and institutional investors invested heavily in American markets because of their size, liquidity, and stability. However, growing geopolitical tensions have sparked discussions about whether those investment patterns could gradually change. Even modest shifts in capital allocation could affect borrowing costs and investment flows over time. Meanwhile, Europe and Canada are expanding cooperation in energy, critical minerals, defense manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and supply chain resilience. Rather than relying overwhelmingly on Washington, many allied governments are pursuing greater economic independence, potentially reshaping the balance of influence across the Western alliance. Viewed separately, potash, investment capital, supply chains, and financial markets may seem like unrelated issues. But together, they reveal a broader trend that is quietly reshaping economic relationships across the Western world. Verdict: the alliance reset, Washington's new challenge. The biggest takeaway is not that Canada or Europe have directly threatened the United States. Rather, America's closest allies are increasingly identifying areas where Washington depends on them, from potash and pharmaceuticals to advanced semiconductors and foreign investment. That alone signals a major shift in the economic relationship between the West's largest economies. For decades, the United States was viewed as the primary center of economic influence, attracting capital, technology partnerships, and strategic cooperation. Today, however, Canada and Europe are placing greater emphasis on domestic investment, supply chain security, critical industries, and economic independence. The result is a more complex balance of influence than many expected just a few years ago. If these trends continue, agriculture, manufacturing, technology, energy, and financial markets could all feel the effects. The key question is whether stronger cooperation can be restored before these evolving dependencies become lasting divisions across the Western alliance. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Do you think America's dependence on Canadian potash poses a genuine long-term risk? Could Europe realistically use supply chain advantages as leverage in future trade disputes? Will Canada and Europe continue moving toward greater economic independence from the United States? Share your thoughts, insights, and experiences in the comments below. Before you go, subscribe to Highway Herald and turn on notifications for future vehicle updates and industry insights. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. You can now check out any of the videos on your screen. There's more insightful content waiting for you right here on Highway Herald.